Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the advisory practice of the future, and we have an amazing special guest who's going to walk us through how to leverage technology to streamline and grow your practice. So first, if you don't already know me, I'm Claire Aiken with Indigo Marketing Agency. I used to be an investment advisor representative with LPL Financial, and my dad is an advisor, so I grew up in this business. And one of the things that I really noticed in working with advisors is that technology can really make or break your practice. It can make it easy and fun to be in your business, or it can make it overwhelming and frustrating and confusing. And so some of the top advisors that I work with use technology to make their practice a great practice that's streamlined, that's fun to work in. And so I want to share some of those tips with you today. I also have a bachelor's degree in economics, a master's degree in marketing, and I'm a lecturer at UCLA Extension. And my business, Indigo Marketing Agency, works with 165 top independent advisors to help them market their business using digital marketing. So today we're going to have a special guest, and I'm really, really excited to have Arielle Minicozzi. Sorry about that. She is a financial advisor with Sphinx Financial. She also is a member of XY Planning Network. And what's really taken off lately in her career is helping advisors with their technology. So welcome, Arielle.
Thank you so much, Claire. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your experience and how you got into being a technology consultant to advisors.
Thank you. That's a great question. I had a very circuitous road to becoming a technology consultant to advisors. After college, began my career in the mortgage industry as a loan officer. And part of my frustration with the mortgage business that I was running was my inability to scale. And I noticed that I was spending a lot of time doing administrative tasks and data entry. So when I decided to leave the mortgage industry and begin my financial advisory firm, I realized I really needed to focus on a way to systematize my business and automate some of the processes that I was doing so I could free up more time to help more clients and do additional marketing activities and grow my business. And when I shared what I was working on with other advisors, everybody seemed to need what I had set up for myself. And it was through that organically I was able to evolve what I was doing just for me into a practice that now I'm helping other advisors implement similar technologies.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I hear this story all the time. So advisors watching, you probably know that, there's so many practices with outdated technologies. A lot of advisors like my dad have, paper files, and they're, using a shredder to shred client data at the end of the year. And, they just don't have their processes and their systems set up to make their business easy and to really bring it into the future. There's so many technologies available today to improve your practice and to make it more efficient, more streamlined. And so I know a lot of advisors are overwhelmed by changing systems. They're overwhelmed by security requirements and data security, and they're not sure which systems to use. And one of the problems is, if you do adapt a new system, whether it be a CRM or a new technology for your practice, and if it doesn't work out, that's a huge waste of time and a huge, sink of your learning and your time that, you may have to redo. And so it's really important to pick the right technologies on the outset, and so that you invest your time and your energy learning something that is going to take you, years into the future and to be the right technology for you. So we'll talk more about that today. So let's just go through right now some of the practices and the technologies that Arielle is using in her practice, which is Sphinx Financial Planning. And what she does is financial planning for professional millennials. And so these are people who grew up with technology, who grew up with the internet, who really want to use technology when they're working with their advisor. So I'll let Arielle kind of explain the way that her practice uses technology to make things easier and simpler.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make, that a lot of my clients grew up with technology, Claire, and they are familiar with how it works. So in my practice, perhaps more so than others, clients expect and like the technology piece. I feel, though, that even if your clientele is of an older generation or perhaps not as tech savvy, there is always room to add efficiencies through technology on the backside at least. So part of what I have set up for myself is a system where anytime a potential client enters data in any place through to when they actually become a client and enter data in other places, that data will pass through from point A to point B to point C, all the way through to point Z without additional input at any time. Just to give you an example, when somebody will come to my website, you can see right here in the snapshot you're showing that there's a button to schedule a free consultation. When somebody clicks on that button, which we'll see a little bit more detail later in our webinar, they get taken to my scheduling software, which is Calendly, and they enter their name, their email address, and a couple other data points. Instead of me having to then take that data and translate it over to my CRM software or to MailChimp, which I use for email automation, I have my system set up so that data passes through on the back end seamlessly to all of those other places. And that's just one example of ways that you can take time that you would otherwise be spending to do data entry and use that time more effectively in other areas of your practice. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail in just a little bit.
Yeah, and I just love, it's a just a point that you're making now, but it's really about making your practice, easy for your clients so they never have to give you their email address twice, and easy for you so you never have to enter their email address twice. And you're also reducing the risk of human error, right? So if you were to gather their email address again, you may input it wrong. And so it's about setting up everything at the outset so that it runs incredibly efficiently to make it easy for the client and easy for you, and to minimize the risk of human error in all of the processes that you have.
You said it perfectly, Claire. I couldn't say it any better.
So great. So so this is kind of the second screen. So when someone comes to your website and they want to schedule an appointment, they just jump into this page where they pick the time and the date that they want to schedule an appointment. And they put in some data about themselves, and then you get their phone number, you get an email reminder so you can call them. And this is kind of the simplest first step of setting up technology in your practice, but we do this for all of my clients. And it's so important to have a button on your website where people can click to schedule a phone call, because we know that people are busy during the workday. And so when they, may be able to call your office to schedule an appointment, that's the time they're busy. So we want to make it easy for them to schedule an appointment 24/7, because most of the urgency that they feel around their financial planning concerns is going to be later at night after they've had a conversation with their spouse, or when they're at home and they're, digging through their credit card bills or thinking about their investments. And so we want to make it, the time that they feel that urgency to schedule a phone call, it's easy for them to click to do so.
100%. And another goal that I have in using technology is to remove as many barriers as possible around clients being able to schedule appointments and take those next steps that they need to do in order to move ahead with financial planning. And this is applicable, I think, to any type of business. You want to remove as many barriers as possible between your clients having that sense of urgency, as you mentioned, Claire, to take that next step and actually going ahead and doing it.
Right. Yeah. And so you make it really easy for them. There's nothing they have to do to prepare. They just click to schedule a meeting, and then you call them at the designated time. So it's super easy. And one of the things that I thought was really cool about your practice and the way you're using technology is this next slide. So when I called Arielle originally to get to know her, I actually just went to voicemail and she missed my call. And I got this cool text message a few minutes later saying, "Thanks for calling Sphinx. Please set an appointment at calendly.com, Sphinx Financial. And while you wait, check out our website." So if Arielle misses a call from a client or a prospect, automatically this message goes out to them. You can see a screenshot of my two little girls there in my phone when I got that text message. I just thought it was such a cool delighter. And this is run by Sideline, the app. And Arielle, why don't you walk us through how you use Sideline and what it does for you?
Sure. Sideline is an application that allows you to have a second phone number on your cell phone. So instead of having a separate business landline or a separate cell phone like I had when I was in the mortgage industry, I really did carry two cell phones around with me at all times. It's really convenient that you have everything all in one spot, but you still have the professionalism of having a dedicated phone number for your business. And as you mentioned, one of the features I love about Sideline is the autoresponder feature, where if I miss a call from somebody, they will get a message from me giving them something to do while they wait. So that sense of urgency doesn't dissipate between when they call me and when I can get back to them. They can go ahead and schedule an appointment, and they can also check out my website and learn more about my practice, continuing on with that sense of urgency and giving them all the information they need so that by the time I actually speak to them, they've been primed and are ready to make a decision on whether to move ahead.
Right. Yeah. I just thought that was so cool. And it just shows that, it shows anybody who calls you that you're investing in technology and that you care and that you're available and you're accessible. So I thought that was really neat. So this next slide shows when somebody signs up with Arielle, so they have a phone call with her, this is what they automatically get from her I guess you're using MailChimp for this. And it's just something that goes out that shows them what they need to do to get organized for the next meeting. So why don't you walk us through this and how you use this technology?
Sure. So MailChimp has been really instrumental to me growing my efficiency in my practice. I have several campaigns set up, and MailChimp, a lot of people think of it as a marketing tool, which it definitely can be. And I do use MailChimp for educational drip marketing campaigns and other sorts of marketing activities. But I feel like I've somewhat repurposed it into a way to give clients access to what they need to be doing without me, again, having to do that additional input myself. So when somebody schedules a meeting, immediately they'll get a message, and afterwards they'll also, after I've marked off that I've had the meeting and it's been completed, get additional messaging like the one that you have here on the screen, outlining their next steps, giving them the links to go to where they need to complete those next steps, so that, again, I don't have to be writing over the same email every single time, saying the same thing over and over. Here's what the next steps are. Here's what the next steps are. And they can complete it at their own convenience and at their leisure without having to wait for me to get back to them as well.
Right. And one of the great things about using these kinds of automations in your practice is that all of your clients are getting the same experience. And so, like, if you go to a Starbucks, it doesn't depend on, which barista makes your drink, and they don't just decide how they want to make it that day. They have processes. So every single time it's made exactly the same, and it's, creates the same experience for you, the same high quality of product that you're delivering. And so through using these automations, she's making sure that all of her clients have an A+ experience and nothing falls through the cracks, and that everybody gets all of these, amazing touch points, and that all of her clients get, the best experience possible from her firm. So I think that's so cool. And so this is another email that you're using MailChimp for. And so walk us through kind of, who sees this, or, how do you use this particular email?
Sure. So one of the other things I wanted to address was my frustration with following up with people who expressed interest in working with me but weren't ready to commit at the time I was speaking to them. And when I was in the mortgage industry, I spent, I'd say, a good quarter of my time following up on leads and chasing people. And when I began this process of automating my systems, one of the things I wanted to do was implement a way to give people the next steps and follow up with them if they expressed interest but weren't ready to move ahead without me having to chase them. So I have a series of emails that after each call, if they decide to move ahead, they get one set of emails. If they don't decide to move ahead but they are still interested, we'll get a second set of emails. And all the emails in that second set includes at the bottom a call to action with just the very next step that they would need to take to continue to move ahead with the process, clearly outlined with a button to go to the site to schedule their next appointment or whatever that next action will be.
That is so cool. Yeah. And so you're just encouraging them to take the very next step in the process and pushing them through this process that you already have set up and you already have clearly defined. And so for a lot of advisors out there, they may not have a clearly defined process of how they onboard new clients. And so this is the perfect opportunity to, define all these steps and then make it really easy for people to take the next step. So maybe they've had a call with you, they're ready to move forward, and the next step is for them to set up their financial planning software. So you're just using a carrot to encourage them to take that easy next step. And so I think that's a really cool way to, make sure that you're following up with the people that you've already invested time with. You've already sat down, you already had a phone call, you've already established trust with these people. people. And so those are the hottest prospects that you should be investing your time. And for so many advisors out there, I think, it's easy to let those people fall through the cracks after you've invested time with them, but those are the people that we want to make sure don't get away. And so, yeah, you can see there's so many advantages to embracing technology for your firm. So first of all, you're improving your process for your prospects going through the pipeline. You're improving your client communications. You're going to close more business because you're automatically following up with prospects that you've, had touch points with. And you're making sure all of your clients get an excellent experience. And of course, you're saving time and you're staying organized, which is really cool because I think a lot of advisors have this feeling that there's so many balls in the air at any one time that, it may be hard to sleep at night, or it may be hard to relax because you feel like things are slipping through the cracks, or that, you're forgetting things. And so by making a system for all of your processes and really defining it and using technology to automate it, that if somebody falls through the cracks or if you forget about something, it's going to be caught by your technology and by your processes. And that's a very comforting feeling to have, that allows you to relax and sleep at night, because that your technologies are going to be a safety net. If you forget something, your technology is going to remind you. And so I think that's important to consider when you're setting up your systems. So let's kind of walk through, your experience and which technologies advisors need today.
Absolutely. So there's a list right here on this slide, but I would say first and foremost, you said it perfectly. The best thing that you can do if you do nothing else is to set up an online appointment scheduler. I personally use Calendly, but there are many others. There's Schedule Once, Acuity, and the list goes on and on. Whatever works for you is fine, but the key is to have a place where clients or potential clients can go to set a time to speak with you, even if you're not available at that very moment. Especially in this online internet world we live in, if you're not available and don't have some way for somebody to express interest, they're most likely going to move on to the next person. So having that ready for them, that they can take that one thing off their plate, that they know they scheduled time, that they've taken that step, it'll give them the comfort that until they actually speak with you, they've at least been making progress towards their goal of working with a financial advisor. The next thing I would say is a CRM software. This is both efficiency for you, in the sense that you're keeping all your data organized, but a lot of CRM softwares also offer workflow management. I use two separate programs to do each of those functions, but there are technologies that have both built in, and there's pros and cons to each. Your financial planning software, I think that's just a given. Automatic email communication, as I touched on, has really helped me personally improve my efficiency and scale my business. And a task manager, again, just for organizational purposes. I use my task manager both for my own tasks as well as for my client tasks to keep them on track and make sure that they know what they need to do, when they need to do it, and when they should be doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so we'll walk through a few of Arielle's favorite technologies. And what's cool is if you do decide to work with her, she can walk you through the pros and cons of which technology is right for you, because these may not be right for your practice. And there's things to consider. It's if you're already using a system you love, you maybe want to plug and play with systems that work well with your current system. And so there's a lot of thought that needs to go into choosing the best technologies for your individual practice. But these are some of her favorites. So Calendly, so that clients can schedule a phone call. Process Street, which we'll show you a little bit about. Tell us what Process Street does again.
Process Street is workflow software. That's all it does, and they do it extremely well. So as I just touched on, some people use their CRM software to manage their workflows, but I really like Process Street because it allows you to have a much more robust experience. You can attach documents that you need to complete a given step in a workflow. You can insert links and do all kinds of other cool stuff. So it's very useful and robust.
Very cool. And then Jotform, we'll walk you through what that does. And then Wunderlist, this is a really cool technology that if you're not already using it, I think you'll love it. Even for your personal life, I use Wunderlist for things that I have to do each day and groceries and everything. And then MailChimp, which we use for our clients for their marketing emails, but you can also easily implement it for your onboarding emails or your client communications. And so let's walk through what Process Street looks like. And so this is how Arielle uses it, and this is her interior of her system. So walk us through, the different use cases for this.
Sure. So Process Street, again, is workflow software. I find it really useful for my own internal workflows. I don't typically use Process Street with clients. And the reason for that is Process Street is best at repeatable tasks that occur in the same order every time. So I have workflows set up in Process Street for pretty much every process you can think of, from all of my meetings to all of my marketing activities to pretty much anything else that you can even think of. And this is a snapshot of part of the reason why I like Process Street over using an internal workflow management with a CRM software. One of the greatest features that I think it has is that you can set up the framework for an email within the workflow and have drag and drop, have drop down fields and text input fields that can customize pieces of that email. So you don't have to start from scratch every single time, but you also have the ability to have the personal touch and have the level of individual customization you need to show your clients that you're not just sending them a cookie cutter message at all times. So in the screenshot here, for example, there's a template for a thank you email that I send after I have a consultation with a potential client. And after we discuss their best plan option, there's a drop down that I can pick from to tell them what the price point would be for that plan. And it will insert that price point right into the message. So it's custom, but it's also one less thing that I have to reinvent the wheel. I don't have to start from scratch every time. I can just customize it as needed.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is so cool that you use this. And, for advisors out there with bigger teams, this is something that your assistant could be doing for you. So after you have a consultation, you could say, okay, we discussed a $1,500 financial plan, send them the follow-up information, and your assistant could log in and do all this for you. So you make sure that people are getting that, personal touch from you, but minimizing the time that you have to spend on it, because you don't have to type out this email and do your own meeting recaps after you talk to each prospect. And so, and it's amazing when you do start working with these technologies and setting up these automations, it becomes so clear how you want your onboarding funnel to go and how you want your client experience to be. And so as you're going through and setting up these systems, it becomes really clear about how to improve your processes and how you can use your team to leverage your time. And so it's a really worthwhile endeavor to invest in, I think.
I would agree.
So this next technology, this is JotForm. And so tell us how you use JotForm in your practice.
Yeah, so a lot of advisors are familiar with Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, and JotForm is very similar to that in that it's a form software where you can drag and drop fields to ask questions, collect data from clients, and have them send that information to you after the client or potential client submits the form. However, one of the reasons I really like JotForm, again, above and beyond some of the other softwares that are out there, is that they have the ability to do more robust calculations. They have the ability to do conditional logic. So for example, if you have a question that says, is this a joint or an individual plan? And they say individual, it will only ask for one person's name and email address. But if they say joint, it will show fields to ask for both people's emails and names. They also have the ability to do an autoresponder email right within the software. So that's what you see here on the screen. As soon as somebody completes their engagement letter, they will receive a copy in PDF of the completed and signed letter, as well as my firm's ADV and privacy policy attached to that email. So I know that every single time the process is happening the same way. I know exactly when they're receiving specific documents, and that way, for compliance purposes, I have a really clear-cut, documented time frame for when things go out, and I know exactly if I ever have to go back and find out when somebody receives something, I have a record of it. I can easily access that too.
That's awesome. And this is another screenshot of JotForm. And so tell us about this and how you use JotForm for your client engagement letters.
Yeah, so this is my client engagement letter. And again, this is a great example of the conditional logic. So before somebody comes to this engagement letter, they tell me they're going to sign on as a client and they receive an onboarding questionnaire. And based on the answers to that onboarding questionnaire, Jotform will determine which engagement they are going to take, because I have 3 tiers of plans, and what their price will be. It will actually calculate it out based on their answers. And I think this is really useful, especially for the fee-only world, where a lot of advisors are moving towards a flat fee, but maybe don't necessarily feel that a flat fee is the right fit because it doesn't account for complexity. Using this is a really good way to account for complexity. Having that onboarding questionnaire that takes into consideration all those different data points and then calculates out what the price will be for you is useful for you, so that you don't have to take the time to do it, as well as for compliance purposes, showing an auditor that you have a methodology that's built right in. You're not just pulling a number out of the air when you're working with a client, I think is useful. So based on the answers to the onboarding questionnaire, Jotform will automatically determine the engagement. It will determine the price. And then once they submit that onboarding questionnaire, it will automatically redirect them to their engagement letter, which will be pre-populated with all that data, their name, their address, their email, and all the data regarding their engagement. And they can just scroll down to the bottom, e-sign it, submit it, and they get the email that we saw in the previous slide, where it has the confirmation of their signed engagement letter in PDF format, as well as the privacy policy for the firm.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you're already seeing how all these pieces fit together, and also how much thought has gone into this, and how thoughtful these systems have been set up. And so that's why it's, if you do decide to move forward to really leveraging technology for your practice, it's so important to work with a professional who understands our industry, who understands compliance, and who understands how all these systems can tie into each other to really save you time and make sure you're avoiding mistakes when you set up your technologies. And so let's talk a little bit about Wunderlist. This looks like one of your to-do lists that you've created. So walk us through how you use Wunderlist to keep yourself on track.
Sure. So like I mentioned, I use Wunderlist as my task management software. I use it both for my own internal tasks as well as for client management. So every time I sign a new client, I have my system automatically set up a new list for that particular client, as well as send them a message where they can access that list. And I have a master list with the common recurring tasks that most people need to complete, but then I can also go in and add individual to-dos that are custom to that person's particular situation. And what you see on the right side is partially, I guess, one of the main reasons I really love Wunderlist, again, over other technologies. You have the ability to not only add tasks to the list, but you can add subtasks like you see on the right, and you can put links to specific sites. You can attach files or voice memos. You can set dynamic due date reminders, so you can set a recurring to-do that occurs once a quarter, once a year, and once one is checked off, the next due date will automatically appear. So again, it's really a good way for your clients to have all the information and all the data they need to complete their tasks when they need to complete it, get reminders so that they know when they're due, and for you to keep on top of who's doing what and when. And I also like to add my own tasks that I'm doing for that individual client to their list. So again, it just increases the visibility and the accountability. That way, even if we don't have a meeting for a couple weeks or a month or two, they know that I'm still working in the background, and they can see where in the process we are and what has to happen next.
Right. Yeah, that's great for client service and for just letting them know what's going on behind the scenes and helping them feel included and involved. So again, here's another example of MailChimp. And so we talked a lot about this. And so this is a great technology and great automations going out. And then walk us through just, some of the basic examples of automations for the advisors that you work with. What are some of the typical things that you set up for advisors to help just get the process started of leveraging technology in their firms?
Yeah, I would say it's really the big 5 that we covered in one of the previous slides: the scheduling software, the email marketing, the task management, the CRM, and any other technologies that they're already using. You did mention that I have my own preferences as far as technology is concerned, but a lot of advisors I work with don't use the same programs as I do, and that's totally fine. If you have something that you're happy with, as long as it plays well with others, and nowadays a lot of technology does, then it's really easy to integrate that and into a fully automated or partially automated system. If we need to add on anything, it's really easy to do that too. And if you do want to change, it's also easy to do that as well.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah, and one of the examples that I'll give is, for a lot of advisors that we work with, maybe they have a list of clients that they're working with, and maybe they have a list of prospects, but they're not actively adding to that list every single month. And so what we'll do is we'll connect their CRM. So whether they're using Redtail or Wealthbox, we'll connect that to MailChimp so that we make sure as they're adding people to their CRM, they're also adding people to their newsletter. So those people will get their emails that we're sending out from a marketing perspective. And so it's important to just, connect all of the systems that you're using so that you save time and that you make sure that everything is being optimized, and that as you're meeting new people or networking with new people, you're automatically adding them to your email list so that they'll see your marketing emails. So let's talk about technology mistakes. I know if you're an advisor, you probably have had some mistakes that you've made in the past, wasting, your time, your money, your staff's time, picking the wrong technologies. Walk us through some of the mistakes that you've seen for advisors.
Honestly, I would say the biggest mistake I see advisors make is being afraid of technology. Again, even if you don't feel like your clients are particularly tech savvy, or even if you yourself are not particularly tech savvy, I think it's easy to be overwhelmed by technology and how to set it up. But I think that's the wrong attitude to have. We live in a technological world, and it's sort of just the way of the future. So being able to overcome that, knowing that there are resources like myself out there, there's YouTube videos, there's training courses, there's a lot of information that you can use to be able to overcome that. I would say that's definitely the biggest mistake I see people making, is just being afraid to use the technology, and it really doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of resources that you can use to overcome that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would add on just to really invest as soon as you decide you're going to use the technology, to invest in learning it. And so there's, no substitute when you're starting using a new technology. Besides actually using it. So actually log in and use it and get to know your software or your technology, because there's a lot of advisors we work with who, don't understand how to use the technology, and they want us to explain it to them. But as soon as we can get them on a screen share and just get them actually in the driver's seat using the technology, all of a sudden they get it and the light bulb goes off. And so if you do, adapt a new technology, just go ahead and, block yourself some time, a couple of hours to go in and play with it and break things and see how it works, and you'll get such a better user experience in the future, and you'll save yourself so much time in the future not being frustrated, and to really be confident in using that system once you actually go in and dive in and commit to learning it. So what is the one thing that advisors should do today? So if you're, working with an advisor who admits that they are not tech savvy, that they are not embracing technology in their practice, what's the one thing you would recommend that they do today to start?
I would say definitely the scheduling software again is the best piece of technology that anybody can use. Most of them are very user friendly, but if you are so overwhelmed and so frightened by the technology, or you feel like you just don't have the time, I would say you can give me a call or schedule an appointment with me, and I will gladly walk you through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's one thing that we really insist. All the advisors that work with my firm, we get them set up with an online appointment scheduler. We put it front and center on their website. We add it to their social media profiles. We add it to every marketing email that goes out. And we make sure that, their clients can use it to schedule a call, and any new prospects can use it to schedule a call. And so it makes it really easy for people to start the conversation with you and to take the next step with you. And so I have a blog post on how to set up Calendly. It's free, and it's really easy to get set up. So what you do is you create your Calendly account, and then you link it to your existing calendar, whether you're using Google or Outlook or whatever calendar that you use. And then you set up some basic parameters so that people can schedule a call with you, say 24 hours in the future. They can schedule a 30-minute call between the hours of 9 and 3 p.m. And You can even add in buffers between phone calls, or you can, book it out so that people can't schedule a call closer than 48 hours. So you have 48 hours notice. And so there's all these parameters to really customize it for you to make sure that you're comfortable with how it works. And you could even have somebody set up a call with one of your assistants to, if you don't want to waste your time on the phone with unqualified prospects, you could set it up with your assistant and they could do a 15-minute screening call to make sure that the prospect's qualified before you spend your time on the phone with them. So there's a lot of different customizations to make it work exactly how you're comfortable with it working. So I'll link to that blog post below so you can learn more if you're interested. And so if you want to work with Arielle, she has generously offered to do a free 30-minute technology call to walk through the technologies that you're using, the technology questions that you have, so you can get answers. So in the next 24 hours only, you can book your free 30-minute technology call. And that is such a great resource to just, start the process of thinking about the best technologies for your firm. And so thank you, Arielle, for volunteering to do that for our listeners. And if you would like to schedule that call, go ahead and click the link below to reserve your space. It's only available for the next one day, so set that time up. And if you're interested in learning more about Indigo Marketing Agency and the webinars that we offer, I want to invite you to our most popular webinar, which is the truth about marketing for financial advisors. So if you haven't already watched that webinar, it will really revolutionize the way that you think about marketing and the way that you think about getting new clients for your practice. And I'll walk you through, the biggest mistakes that advisors have made in their marketing and what's really working for advisors today from a marketing perspective. So I want you to take a look at that by clicking the link below to register if you haven't already seen that webinar, and join our newsletter. I'll also link to that below. Every single month, we do new webinars like this to help advisors understand what advisors out there are doing that's working, and to really learn and invest in, your practice and your education when it comes to marketing and technology for your practice. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out our other webinars below. You can read our books. You can take our courses. And Arielle, I just want to really thank you for your time and for your expertise, and let you kind of close it out right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And as Claire mentioned, definitely take advantage of the free consultation. I'm happy to guide anybody through any questions you have, or look at your tech stack and give you some guidance. And just don't be afraid to get started with technology. It'll definitely help you improve your practice.
Absolutely. It's the way of the future. And we appreciate your time. And we look forward to all the advisors that are going to schedule calls and get started on their next endeavor, embracing technology. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.